it depends on where you're at, but anywhere from like 1 inch to 4 inch water on the floor with floating human feces all over.
And just to be clear, use third-party management now.
And just to be clear, I use third-party management now.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled podcast. This podcast is about people who were successful in their first or early career, but chose to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
And I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller. Today's guest is Todd Dexheimer, owner of Venture D Properties out of Minneapolis. And Todd, just wanted to get started with, can you tell us a little bit about your former career and how long you were doing that?
I was a teacher. I was teaching high school and middle school industrial tech. It was, what I dreamed about right when I got out of high school. Honestly, that's all I wanted to do. And it was fun for a while. I taught industrial tech. I was teaching, woods, woodworking, metalworking, construction trades, architecture, engineering courses, stuff like that. So it was a lot of fun. Did that for, 5 years before I started doing the real estate thing.
Yeah, and then I guess segue into that, what path have you gone down now?
Yeah, so currently I'm doing value add multifamily. I also do some senior group housing as well, and then I coach others to do multifamily as well. So that's kind of what I'm currently doing. When I first transitioned, though, I didn't just jump into large multifamily properties. I was a teacher, so I didn't have money. And I didn't have connections that had money. So I started with single families, duplexes, stuff like that, and was buying those, flipping them, keeping them. So that's kind of how I got my feet in the door, was to buy smaller properties and, like I said, flip and hold and that kind of.
That's where a lot of people get their start. And, again, quite honestly, you can do quite well there.
Yeah. I mean, at one point in time, I had about 100 units of 1 to 4 family properties and a 15 unit building. I'd flipped 150 houses, so it you can do well there. It's hard to scale, definitely, but you can definitely do well.
Good deal. Can you think of, is there something that was, maybe a funny story you can share with us about your, from when you were a teacher, something kind of made you go, why am I doing this?
Well, I can think of many things. One of the main reasons why I said, why am I doing this, was I would show up every single year at these meetings and we would have these new initiatives that we would do. And now this isn't a funny story. I'll go to the funny story.
Okay.
We do have these new initiatives that we would do, and you'd get all excited. You'd get ready to do these initiatives, and you'd realize, after getting through part of the school year, that nobody else is doing these initiatives, that the administration isn't paying attention to these initiatives, and they're not pushing for them. And all of a sudden, midterm, we've got this new meeting, and they're talking about this new initiative that we're going to try. And it's like, well, wait a second, what happened to the last one that we were all doing? And so year after year, this would happen. And so by probably my third year, I was like, forget this initiative. I'm not going to spend any time on this stupid thing because it's just going to go to the wayside anyway. So that was one of the most frustrating things I think of teaching I could think of, is it was just pointless for some of these things and the waste of time and money. But one of the best stories I can think of, and I got many, but so I had this, I was teaching woodworking class, and we've got these wood planers that take the wood, and for anybody that doesn't know, if your piece of lumber that we're talking building a desk or any kind of furniture. So if your piece of lumber is kind of rough, that's how it comes. Usually is rough on the sides and front and back. And so they run it through a planer, and the planer makes it smooth, and it also gets it to the size you want. And then I got the table saw that's directly behind the planer. And so this kid in my class decides to put a steel ruler through the planer, and the planer blade hit the steel ruler, and it shot the ruler back violently towards the table saw and just barely missed this girl that was cutting boards on the table saw. So I saw what happened. I went over there and I chewed into the kid. I mean, I went off at him. I told him he's being an idiot, whatever. He said, "You can't call me an idiot." I said, "You were being an idiot." I said, "I can call you call you what it is." I said, "Get out of my classroom. You're not welcome back. I don't want to see you back in my classroom the rest of this week." And it's, I don't know, Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever day it was. I said, I want you back here the rest of this week. Get out. Go to the office right now. So he goes to the office and he comes back to my classroom. I said, what are you doing here? He says, "Well, the office said they'll deal with me later and that I need to go back to class." I said, "No, get out of my class. I don't want to see you." He said, what do you want me to do?" I said, "I don't care. Go wander the hallways. I don't care. Get out of my class." He goes, "If I wander the hallways, I'll get in trouble." I said, "Good. Go wander the hallways." So I got him out of my class. I locked the door so he wouldn't come back in. And then I went down to the principal's office when I had a free time, and I reamed them out for sending this kid back to my class that almost killed somebody. It's like,
yeah.
So that was just one of the stories. I don't remember exactly when he came back finally to my class, but I didn't let him touch any equipment from the rest of the semester. All he did was bookwork the whole time. I called him a safety hazard. Yep. I called him a safety hazard, and I said, "You just do bookwork."
No power tools for you, buddy.
Safety cap in the corner over there.
Right. Yeah. Man, I could keep telling stories. No, this is bringing back good memories. But the great thing is, I got all of the fingers. None of them are sewn back on. They all work.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
It tells you how long you've been doing shop.
Yeah.
Which was a deciding factor that kind of changed your path you were on, the career.
Yeah, I don't know that there was a deciding factor. I think it was just a number of different things that were kind of playing together. As I went, I was like, this is just not for me. I enjoy some of the teaching aspect. I really didn't enjoy the administration aspect, as I already talked about, and some of the other just kind of political stuff. I didn't enjoy that portion. I wanted to teach the way I wanted to teach. And I didn't want people telling me what to do. Well, if you don't want people telling you what to do, you probably shouldn't be working for other people. You probably should be, working for yourself. So I think that was a big deciding factor. And then the other thing was, probably that, like, look, this is just something I can't do the rest of my life. And then as I just explored and went and looked at what was out there and what was possible, real estate really spoke to me, and it made a lot of sense. I got to own my own business, and real estate itself, the numbers made a lot of sense. I did remodeling construction throughout the summers to pay for school and even beyond. Houses made sense, buildings made sense. It just kind of fit together. So I think it was that. I was always kind of an entrepreneurial drive, right? I did little things as a kid and teenager to entrepreneurial kind of endeavors, and it's always been in me.
So Todd, as you started shifting to your new path, were there some obstacles that you encountered early on that were something that you really had to kind of figure out, okay, how am I going to overcome this?
No, everything was perfect.
Fantastic.
To hear those stories yet.
I've never had anything go wrong.
Sure. No obstacles ever.
No obstacles ever. No. Yeah. I mean, look, I started this journey in 2008. Of course, there was obstacles. The sky was falling at that time. The crash had already started. I remember sitting there in 2005 to 2006, and one of my buddies says, they're not making more real estate. Might as well buy it. And I said, yeah, they're not making more land, but they sure are making a lot more houses. I think this market's going to crash, and I'm glad I didn't have enough knowledge or thought to go buy a bunch of properties, because by 2008, when I started buying, the sky was falling.
Mhm.
So what were the challenges? Look, financing was extremely difficult to get. Properties were losing value. So everything I was buying, I'd buy it for 60, I'd renovate it. Now it's worth 150, and 6 to 8 months later, it's worth 110. It's like, so properties were losing value quickly. You didn't know when that drop was going to stop, and you just didn't know how far it was going to go. So you're taking risk there. Now I mitigated that risk, and I felt pretty comfortable with what I was doing, or confident with what I was doing when I'm looking at their, I'm all in on a house at, let's call it $80,000. Even when the market drops, it could drop quite a bit to get down to that 80,000. And even if it did and got less than that, I've got, a property that's bringing in $1,400 per month in rent. Okay. Well, that works. A lot of things have to go wrong. And of course they could for this to go sideways on me. So I think those were the biggest obstacles. Now, I guess the other obstacle goes along, same with financing, is the money part. I just didn't have a lot of money. My wife and I had about 20 grand in our bank account, maybe 25 grand in our bank account. We just didn't have a lot of money. And I didn't really know a ton of people that were wealthy. So I didn't have parents that were wealthy, or a bunch of family members that were wealthy. So that was money. The equity was a big issue.
As you progressed, Todd, down that syndication journey, as you went from the single family homes and then eventually as you got into, as you're talking about now, raising the money from other people to buy larger apartment buildings, what was your first victory along that way you would characterize?
Man, first victory along that way. So the raising money journey happened almost right away. Um, I realized very quickly I didn't have the money, and so I started digging and trying to figure out how I was going to get the money for these properties. I actually brought in a business partner who I thought had a lot of money, and he had some, but he actually just knew people with a lot of money. So that was really good. And we started bringing in other people's money kind of right away. And as I went, just people started getting attracted to us by the success we were having in investing. So, what was the first kind of success, I guess, would just have been, in my flipping days, when I was bringing in private money and we're partnering with people. At first I was doing 50-50 splits with people on the profits, and I'm, they're giving me money, and I'm giving them 80% return on investment annualized. I was giving people returns like that early on, like 70, 80, 90% return on investment. So that was the early days of success. It was great to see. And that's when we started attracting a lot more money, when they started to see, profits, and they're always making money. And we very early on, we gave not a guarantee, but a promise that, promise is even too strong of a word, but said even if the property doesn't make money, we're going to give you $4,000 profit no matter what. Like, well, that's what we're going to do. And so we just made it always a part of our, just a part of who I am, to make sure we're taking care of the people who are taking care of us in the first place. So
that's huge. Yeah. Just again, making that commitment to take care of your investors, and, because you want them to come back. And if they don't have a good experience, then they're not going to come back. So that's awesome.
I mean, I want to make money. We all want to make money. That's how we keep the doors open and move this thing forward. But the investors are a critical part of it. So if I'm not taking care of them, if I'm not paying them, I'm going to figure out a way. Like even like for me, even if I lose money on a syndication and the investors lose money, we're going to then figure out a way. I'm going to figure out a way to pay them. I don't know how, but we're going to do it.
Right.
That's just, you got to think that way, in my opinion, if you're going to start taking other people's money.
Yeah, completely agree. So along your journey of, from the flips to the syndication, is there some funny story in there, some humorous anecdote you want to share?
Oh man, what do you want to hear about? I mean, look, I got rental stories they're hilarious. I got all kinds of crazy stuff that has happened along the journey. I think a funny, is being a landlord can be really humorous. And if you're actually doing some of the stuff yourself, you really get to see it. But even if you like, even now, like I've got things that happen and you're just like, oh my gosh, how does this stuff happen? Like, you just wonder, like, how does some of this stuff happen? But so one of my properties, it was a single family house. This is when I was actually still managing my properties. And this lady calls me up. She said the basement's leaking. And I'm like, well, that's kind of weird. It's like June and we haven't had a ton of rain. Like, well, how is the basement leaking? So, and that basement's never leaked. So I go over there and take a look at it, and I go down to the basement, and I'm like, there's water all over the floor. Kind of walking around, I'm like, what is going on here? This is just really weird. It's got kind of a weird smell, not really bad, but it was just kind of weird. And as I walk around, I'm like, oh no. I said, I can't remember her name. I think it was Yolanda. I said, can you flush the toilet for me? So she flushes the toilet, and sure enough, I see crap start coming out of the clean out in the basement.
Yeah.
And then as I really look around and pay attention, that's when I see there's a bunch of turds floating around in the basement. And I'm walking in it. Oof. And this is like, it depends on where you're at, but anywhere from like 1 inch to 4 inch water on the floor with floating human feces all over it.
And just to be clear, you use third-party management now?
And just to be clear, I use third-party management now. So I'm like, Yolanda, do you realize what's down there? She had no clue that her own poop was floating around in the basement.
Wow.
Then I hire a kid. I had crews at that time, and I hire a couple of our laborers that were younger. I shouldn't call them kids. They were, but I hire a couple of young guys to come in. I gave them the hazmat suits. We rented hazmat suits and everything, and they came over there and they got the water out, and they had to scoop the remaining crap into garbage bags, and they filled like 8 or 9 garbage bags full of it. Now it's so it took us a while. We had to clean it up, but it was something else.
Yeah.
Talk about a crappy story.
That's right.
Yeah, I had a story where a relative of mine had hired a contractor to redo a kitchen, and there was some weird stuff going on in the basement below. Like you could see something on the wall, and it was a finished wall, so you could tell there was something behind the wall. Well, they opened it up, and it turned out that the contractor had not actually hooked up the garbage disposal, so it was just shooting food into the wall and dripping down into the basement. Yeah, wonderful.
Yeah,
not as bad as your story, but yeah.
Right.
Oh, God,
you don't be the winner of that story, Richard.
No.
we had a resident. This is my last story, I promise. We had a resident that he locked his dog in the closet, and I don't know if he just didn't let the dog ever go out or what, but he locked the dog in the closet. We actually ended up having to evict the guy for other reasons. That's a whole story in itself. An exciting, fun story, by the way. I got thrown in the back of the cop car in that story, but nothing illegal. Don't worry. At least on my part. On his part, yes. But anyways, so when we go through and do the walkthrough and open up that closet, it had 12 inches of dog poop in the closet. It was a foot of dog poop, and that dog that's how it was living. It was living on top of its own poop. It was so disgusting, so sad. It was just sad. Like,
yeah.
Sad.
And why have an animal if you're going to treat it that way? That's awful.
I think it was his guard dog. He was dealing drugs and guns and arms, and so I think it was his protector.
Oh, okay.
Keep it angry, yeah. So
fun stuff.
Yeah, hey, fun, good stuff.
This was in a good neighborhood, by the way. Like, it just doesn't have to be C-class, like D-class neighborhoods. This was in a good, clean neighborhood.
Yeah. That's crazy. Dang. Well, I guess where are you on your journey today? as you've done the syndication, you got larger and scaled up and have done more and more properties.
Yep.
Where are you on your path?
Yeah, I mean, always learning, growing, right? That's where I'm always at. And so right now, main focus, value add syndication. We're doing more heavier value add. We're not typically doing the lipstick type value add. We go in and actually do some sizable renovations, 15,000 plus typically.
Oh, wow.
For our renovations. Purchasing, 100 plus unit buildings. We're looking at larger, 200 to 300 plus buildings right now is kind of our main focus. Yeah, we actually just took down a building. We're putting 36,000 a door into it.
Wow.
So we like those bigger value adds. Also, building out a senior group home kind of arm as well. That one is just kind of in its early stages. So we're taking it really slow, taking it methodically. But I really like that industry and space. I see where the, baby boomer generation is coming in and the age it's currently at. And it's got a lot of room, in my opinion, to grow still. So we're just really slowly looking at and strategically looking at growing that as well. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah. Okay. Seems to be a few challenges with that, with the pandemic and everything, as you're kind of rolling that out.
The pandemic, you obviously you hear about all these seniors that are dying from the pandemic, from COVID, but we have luckily yet we have not been negatively affected by it. Not saying we can't, we certainly can. We're not clearly out of the woods yet. So we're being very cautious, and the staff is very aware of what's going on. And, obviously we want to, the biggest thing, regardless of a pandemic or not, is to keep your residents healthy and, make sure you're taking care of them properly. It's a little different of a strategy. It's a lot more hands-on than just a multifamily, but it's more, definitely more customer service. Your residents, you've got to really make sure you're taking care of them. I think that's the biggest difference. And then the other thing would be more regulations involved. Mm-hmm. So having the right people in place with everything is extremely valuable.
Right. So your path forward, really, again, you're going to continue down the multifamily, continue down the senior living side. Okay, got it. Do you have
continue to grow. The goal is just continue to grow that multifamily portfolio, continue to serve our investors properly. Mm-hmm. I have unit goals. I want to continue to grow my business, but more importantly, I have investor goals. I want to make sure every single investment that we get into, we feel like it's a great investment for our investors to join us in. So that's really where we're focused on, not necessarily as fast as we can grow. We're in a great position. I'm in a great position where I don't have to buy multifamily properties. I don't have to do that to keep the lights on. So I don't have to get acquisition fees. Mm-hmm. And so I do it because I want to grow the company and I want to make sure we're serving our investors properly.
Well, what is something, Todd, that to help the listeners that you've implemented in your business recently that's helped you achieve some of your goals, or any particular thing?
Well, there's probably several things. One of the biggest things, this wasn't recently, I guess, but it's been within the last several years, is I've really, really done a lot of time blocking, and very detailed time blocking. So that has helped a lot. And I notice a big difference in if a week goes by that I don't actually take the time to time block at the start of the week, I notice the production level goes down, just drastically. So I think that's really been really key and critical. The other thing that's really, and you hear this a lot now, is just the start of the morning, just making sure that you've got some sort of routine, and that's not business. And so that's what I've spent a lot of time with making sure I've got a good routine down that gets me ready to go for the day and gets my mind in the right spot. So I guess those are two big ones. The other one that has been actually really good for my business is really spending time. And this is something I've done fairly recently. I've spent a lot of time trying to build and harness relationships, grow them, and actually spend time with those relationships. And I have to continue to work on it because it's easy to talk to 5 people and then forget to talk to them again, right? And that's the biggest thing with the relationships is if we want to truly build relationships with people, you can't just call them once and talk to them and have good conversation and then forget to reconnect with them for 6 months, right? You've got to continue to build and harness those relationships. So that's something that's really been, I've seen a lot of value in it lately. I've got a lot of opportunities lately. I've done some business lately with these relationships that I've just been purposefully building, growing, and maintaining.
Very nice. Todd, what advice would you give somebody who's perhaps contemplating some sort of a career change or some sort of, maybe taking on a new path like you've done?
Well, I think you need to think about your circumstances, right? And so everybody's different. Can you quit your job right now and just go do something different? Maybe if you don't have any kids and you don't have a bunch of big monthly bills, yeah, potentially you can just quit right now, especially if you got a good amount in savings and everything looks great. But I don't recommend that for most people. I don't think most people should be doing that. I think you should look at your own situation, figure out what you need to be able to survive. But you got to start and you got to put the time and effort into it. I think anybody that's looking for that career change, you have to take action. You just have to take action. You got to get educated, be listening to podcasts like this, and get educated, but you got to take action. You got to start doing it and building up that income and building up those resources and really getting that kind of that ball moving, because eventually you're going to need to quit your job and want to potentially quit your job. And so I don't think you necessarily need to replace your income. It's always handy, but you need to be at least on a trajectory to where you're like, okay, if I quit now, I can see where I am going to be replacing my income, and it'll go a lot faster once you quit. But at the same time, if you've got a family and you've got people to take care of, it also, things can go sideways too. And you just want to be careful. You want to make sure you take care of the people you need to take care of.
Right.
And it's handy to have a job to qualify, especially if you're in multifamily or single family or anything. You got to qualify for loans. So it's handy to have a job.
Right. Right.
But Todd, what's the best way for listeners to reach you? We'll add these down in the show notes also.
Yeah. So there's social media. I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn mainly. They can just look me up, Todd Dexheimer. There's one of me, at least that I know of. They can also go to my website. Website is venturedproperties.com, venturedproperties.com. I've got a free book there that they can download, and they can download that book. They can check out the website. I've got my coaching linked to that. And of course, if they want to connect with me to talk about syndications, they can do that through there as well. I'm happy to jump on a call with anybody. Oh, and I have a podcast as well, which you guys are going to be on in a few weeks, probably.
Excellent.
So probably by the time this airs, yours will be airing at least shortly after or at the same time. So
very good.
So that's called Pillars of Wealth Creation. They can also find that on the Venture D Properties website or pillarsofwealthcreation.com.
Well, thanks, Todd. We really appreciate the discussion. I want to thank you for being on the Road Less Traveled podcast, and wish you continued success.
Awesome.
Also,
thanks, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. We also want to thank our audience. We appreciate you listening, and we thank our sponsors. And remember, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action.